That's it. Look, the next talking point of the 2022-23 campaign came on the 28th of November. The club announced that Michael Beale would be the 18th manager of Rangers, signing a contract until 2026. We all know that Beale had worked as Gerrard's assistant and was largely credited with the way that the team played in that Gerrard era. He appointed Neil Banfield, Harry Watling and Damien Matthews as his coaching backroom staff there. Took the Rangers board 7 days to appoint a new manager, Craig. I know you were talking about that 9 days from the St Mirren game to actually sacking Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. What was your reaction to Michael Beale being appointed the 18th manager of Rangers Football Club?
With the fact it was a 2-day improvement.
And Craig, you've got to mention who you wanted to bring in originally.
I was going to say I'm not entirely sure I remember who else was in line for or in competition for discussion. It was not a pool of managers filled with quality, if I remember correct. It was part of the reason why we thought they were hanging on to Gio for so long was that who else is going to come in, and there wasn't an obvious candidate out there for who it could have been. When Michael Beale came in, I think I did the announcement podcast with, I can't remember who it was with, but I said I had reservations. I said everyone was buying into the fact he was definitely the mastermind behind Gerrard's tactics and all of that stuff. You're never quite sure about how true these things are. It could be that people weren't giving Gerrard enough credit for what he put into that team. We saw with how Aston Villa's form dipped as soon as Michael Beale left for QPR. We did see how much Michael Beale must have been, or how instrumental he must have been in the background. But you're still got to give Steven Gerrard some credit for the way he turned around our squad and their mentality and how they played. So your question, how much can he turn it around? You're then saying he's coming in where we were 8 or 9 points behind at that stage. You're thinking he's whoever the next manager is coming into, I think it was Hibs at home, Aberdeen away were the first 2 games. First 2 games we had, and you're thinking if he comes in and he loses one of those games, drops points in either of those games, he's instantly under pressure. Is that what manager's going to be able to handle that? And Michael Beale will be able to make a big enough impact in a short space of time? Thankfully he did. But my instant reaction was, I need to wait and see what he's like. I wasn't fully on the Michael Beale train when he arrived. I said when he arrived that I felt he had to win a trophy this season. That was one of the key things I said I thought he had to do was win one of the cups. I probably spoke about the league already been gone, even at that early stage in start of December. But I felt he had to win a trophy. He's not done that, and we'll come on to talk a bit about how the team has performed since he's been in. He's not done that. The pressure's on him. I think probably not as much pressure as there could be, because he has turned around the form and he's managed to get a tune for the vast majority of the games out of the players. But I had reservations when he came in. Those reservations have definitely lessened. I wish he would get some media training or some extra media training. But apart outside of that, I think he's done almost as good a job as he could have asked for. The one downside is the Old Firm games.
Yes, it's very hard to disagree with a lot of what you've said there. Tommy, I'm going to skip a wee bit in terms of the conversation here with Michael Beale and the signings that he's brought in, rather than getting your thoughts on how you reacted to him coming in. But the first sort of signing of the January transfer was Todd Cantwell. He joined for approximately 1.5 million from Norwich on January 23rd. I know that was a tweet after the last Old Firm game of the season that went down particularly well on the This Is Ibrox Twitter. If you're not following, by the way, give us a follow on Twitter.
Well done.
That's it. And then
Told the company line. That's
it.
And then
your announcement's going to be in 5 days. Okay.
Then the club announced Nicola Raskin for 1.5 to 2 million. I'm just checking you there, Ross. For 1.5 million with a 20% sell-on clause on the 31st from Standard Liège. Tom, I just want to get your thoughts on Nico Raskin. He's made 16 appearances for Rangers. He's got 1 assist. He's a player I've been really, really impressed with so far since he's come in terms of his speed. It's his speed about winning the ball back. It's his anticipation of where the ball is, and ultimately when he gets it, I really like the transition from where he goes. He goes forward quickly. What's your thoughts on Raskin's impact since he's come into the club?
Well, I mean, I'm trying to quickly put together the list of cliches that I've had here, so I'm going to have another done at this. Actually, both Raskin and Cantwell are head up players, forward facing.
Yeah.
Right, young, hungry, obviously talented on the ball as well. Very much fit the player profile that Michael Beale's been speaking about. Definitely not veterans, and I don't think they've got any significant injury histories either. So there we go. Yeah, I think there was a lot of chat about Raskin. I don't think he hit the ground running as quickly as other people thought. I think he's taken a little bit of time. Cantwell the exact same. It's quite clear now to see that they are a very, very good pairing. I like Raskin's ability to read the game. Yeah. Exceptionally well.
Yeah.
His decision making in tight spots is pretty good as well. And his drive with the ball is really good. And I think the final ball will get even better and better as he gets a bit. I don't think he'll be a free scoring midfielder or anything like that. I'm pretty sure, but I'm happy to be proven wrong with that about that next season. Cantwell on the other side, you know, he's got everything that you kind of want in terms of he's a bit stylish, works like a dog actually. I was quite surprised with that recent Old Firm game at Ibrox as well. Really seems to get it. Not a phrase I'm particularly, I use particularly often, right? It can mean anything, but he seems to really want to get a relationship with the fans.
Yeah.
And he certainly knows how to stick the ball in the back of the net as well. I think the pairing are really important because what they show you is what Michael Beale is trying to get, which is guys who are comfortable in the ball, who will work but have a bit of flair, who are young, who can engage. And if I just kind of add on to the side there, from a Cantwell perspective, he's a great kind of media commercial player for Rangers as well. He'll be front and centre on a lot of the advertisements.
Yep.
But yeah, listen, it's positive. I think, as a very final point to that, what's been really impressive for both of them is they've come into a struggling side and managed to bring players round about them up the way. Now, for guys who aren't what we would call veterans or senior players or anything like that, or rather, they don't have that kind of vibe to them before they get in the door, they aren't wearing the armband. Just by sheer performances and personality, they've made players round about them a little bit better.
Yeah.
If that's the level of quality we're adding to the squad in the summer as well, I think we're in a pretty positive place.
Kyle, I spoke about reservations I had about Michael Beale beforehand. I think the recruitment side of things is, with any new manager that comes in, you're always thinking it can literally go any way, and those two insights of Raskin and Cantwell have been particularly positive, and in a season where there's not been a lot of positives for Rangers, they are two signings whose performances have given us hope as we head into next season and beyond, in terms of the type of player that Michael Beale can bring to us, that how Michael Beale's scouting system works, his knowledge and relationship with players, that he was able to bring players like that to the club. All of that has given me, I would say, I don't speak for anyone else apart from myself, so but it's given me hope in terms of going forward, and I think going by social media, it's given a lot of other people hope as well, in terms of these players are a step above what we have had in the squad this season, and it's been so clear to see the last 4 or 5 months since January, and that's what's given me hope and excitement as we head into what is going to be a really important summer with a huge rebuild. Can I
just add to that as well, Ross? I know you want to jump in here at some point, but I'm just not going to let you. Right?
Ross is still here, everyone. By the way,
he slid under the table and went out, but he's carrying an injury. Right, but I think it's really important as well to look at the way that Michael Beale has assessed and handled players that were in the squad already. So, not rushing Suter back, taking your time with Yilmaz, taking your time and taking Matondo out of the limelight after playing him in his first couple of games. Then it didn't quite work. Brought him out. I think all those players will have a part to play next season. Quite a large part to play actually. So I think it's not just about bringing in new players, but what he's doing with the existing quality he's got there as well, and supporting some big judgment calls in the likes of Morelos and Kent leaving. The club could have made additional moves there and tried to keep at least one of them. So he's not been slow to deal with the hand strongly, and I think those three things are pretty positive.
Yeah, totally agree. As you said, it's the type of player that we've brought in, and it's the fact that we got those deals over the line. We all knew we needed players like that done, and we've went out and spent the money. Okay, there's the 20% sell-on clause in Raskin's contract, but it was necessary to get that deal done. And okay, it might, looking when we sell the player, I'm sure it'll get mentioned, but for him in these 3-4 years, however long we'll be here, it's important. But Ross, I will give you an opportunity to talk about Todd Cantwell, because I know that you will want to talk about him. He's come in, he's scored 6 goals, 4 assists, but it's the other side of his game that's really, really impressed me. It's his
listeners and watchers. I've been trying to keep you away from this, but you're going to have to face into Ross.
I know,
talking
he's
about it.
kicking me under the table. That's what it is.
So I'm so keen to get involved with this.
Yeah.
Well, just to go back on something Tommy said there, because I think it was a good point when it comes to Michael Beale. I think we all have a lot of confidence in Michael Beale right now because he's recognising what the squad needs. So he was only able to bring in 2 players in January, but he decides to bring in Nico Raskin, who I think a lot of people felt he was going to be this kind of number 6 that sits in front of the back 4. Yep. I would say he's probably quite an aggressive number 8, which I think is a position that we've wanted for a long time. He's brought him in. I think as well we wanted creativity in the front line, something we've not had for a while. We've felt that we've lacked that, and I think we have that now. Todd Cantwell and Malik Tillman gave us that this season, really.
Yep.
We're maybe just lacking in terms of someone being able to finish these chances, but
yeah,
I like that from Michael Beale. He's assessing the squad, he's recognising what he needs, and he's getting them in, and the club do deserve credit for both of those deals, right? And
yep.
This is before I come on to Todd Cantwell, right? But the club were proactive here, and this is what we've criticised the club for a lot in the past, that they just haven't went out and got the deal done.
Yeah.
And really, there's a lot of people that will sit back and go, 1.5 million or 1 million, that's not a lot of money, just go and do it. Well, frankly, it is quite a lot of money for Rangers, right? It is. We have to be honest. But the club have went forward. They felt that these are the players that are going to give Michael Beale the best possible chance to do something this season, and they've went and got them. So the club deserve credit there. They've recognised 2 great players. The recruitment department, again, gets criticised, but Nico Raskin's been on Rangers' list for a couple of years. He was being linked when Steven Gerrard was here. So again, the club deserve credit when it comes to recruitment. As for Todd Cantwell, I love him. And I
am shocked.
I totally agree.
That's enough. You don't need to say anymore.
I totally agree with what Tommy said there. I think he will be the poster boy for Rangers going forward.
He's certainly the poster boy in your room, isn't he?
Yeah. No comment. He's such a good footballer, and I think I remember one of the first press conferences he spoke in when he came up here that he wasn't really sure why he had the tag of not really working hard when it came to football. He was a bit of a luxury player, and he said, I'm not really sure where that's came from, because I'm always someone that's looking to get stuck in and get involved, and I think he's shown that in abundance. I think the first game we've seen him at Ibrox, he was a wee bit tentative, he was quite safe, but I think this was a player just trying to find his feet, get some fitness under him. If you remember, we went into that League Cup final with Celtic, and a lot of people felt that both Raskin and Cantwell should have played that day, and he didn't. And I think Michael Beale, if you sat him down now and asked him whether he made the right decision, I think he would come back and say he didn't, and he got it wrong that day. But ever since that day, both of these guys, but mainly in my opinion, Todd Cantwell, because I agree with what Tommy said, I think Nico Raskin's taken a wee bit of time to get involved. I think Michael Beale said that he is lacking fitness, and he maybe drops off after the hour mark, and I think we've all seen that as fans, right? But Todd Cantwell has just absolutely grabbed this opportunity. He's obviously felt that there's no one in this squad at the moment that really is dragging this team, and this is a player that's decided to do that. He's worked great off the ball, and I find that quite amusing here that I'm talking about the off the ball stuff when it comes to Todd Cantwell before I talk about the on the ball stuff, but that shows you how much of an impact he's made at Rangers. His off the ball is great. I think he shows leadership. You can always see him in the park moving people around, asking people to play in certain places. And what I always love from a player is bravery in and out in possession.
Yeah, agreed.
This is a guy that moves anywhere about the park to get the ball. And he's willing to drop into space when he's needed. He's willing to make runs in behind when needed. This is just a great player that we are lucky to have, in my opinion. And he's one of these players that I look at and think, if he keeps going like this, he's probably not going to be around for too long. That's unfortunately the way it goes. But yeah, a great player, Todd Cantwell, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be the main man for us going forward under Michael Beale.
In post-production, what we're going to do is we're going to put some nice romantic music over the top of that. I think it'll be really
Hearts coming out.
Really nice for him. We should also give a nod to Kieran Dowell.
Yes.
As well, who's been signed up, which also speaks to the proactivity of the club, getting business done, signing players who have got a really good profile as well. I think we'll see a hell of a lot more of that across the summer as well. The club's been very clear about transformation on and off the park.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I think it's where I stand on it was I am glad we've done this business now rather than waiting to the summer, especially with Raskin. I think there was other suitors involved, and I don't think maybe Cantwell as well might have been off somewhere else if he'd been hanging about for another 6 months.
Just to add to that, Hale, I'm pretty certain the two players don't come here if we let it go to the summer. Genuinely, because I think you're seeing the quality now of Todd Cantwell that there would have been Premier League clubs or high-end Championship clubs that would have taken a risk on him. You know, that this is a guy that played at the top level in the Premier League. He's maybe not had a great run over the last couple of years, but we can bring him in on a Bosman and potentially flip him in the future. Same with Nico Raskin, you know, I think he was being linked with, was it an Italian club at the time? I remember there was certain links with Raskin when we were getting close to finalising it, and that might be coming from his agent essentially saying, you know, you need to get this over the line because we have clubs waiting.
You were fully bought into that agent talk, though.
He was down the rabbit hole on it. Yeah.
If you're, you know, as a risk to let these things go, because we know that Rangers aren't going to be offering the top salary packages when it comes to European football. So, like I said before, the club have been proactive. They've got it done, and they deserve a lot of credit for that.
It plays on players' minds as well, because you always hear players saying, "Oh, I really felt wanted." So there's a club and a manager saying, "Right, we will spend money right now, even though we think we could maybe have a chance of getting you in the summer. We'll get in right now," and that's where you pick up players. Because I think primarily every player you ever speak to or you see the interviews, they go, "I really felt that they wanted me." Right, we opened the checkbook and they got in early. That's how much they wanted you.
Yeah,
that really matters.
I think that's very important in the way that Todd Cantwell plays, is that he needed that from a support that loved him and wanted him to do well, and I think he's got that in a home at Ibrox, hopefully for a few years to come, Ross.
Yeah, sorry, I was potentially selling him on there. I didn't mean that. We'll keep him forever.
That's it. Craig, look, I want to come to you on the next talking point here in terms of Beale's record as manager so far. The stats are he's played 29, we've won 23 games, drawn twice, lost 4. Well, I'm sure you'll touch on 2 of the losses there, arguably 2 of the most significant losses of the season. Interestingly enough, he scored 69 goals.
He scored them all himself, did he?
That's it. He's fantastic.
We should sign this guy up. That's it.
Our striker crisis is sorted. We're just going to fire the manager up front there. And we've conceded 29 goals in that time as well, which is perhaps a wee bit higher than what I anticipated it'd be. But ultimately, he's got a win rate of 79%. How would you rate Beale's time so far since he's come in? Has he done the things that you expected him to do? And have you been happy with him so far?
I'm going to avoid giving him a rating out of 10.
No, I'm absolutely not looking for that.
I think the time since Michael Beale's come in has been encouraging because he's been able to put together performances in the games against the other 10 teams outside of Celtic. He's been able to make sure that we win those games week in, week out. We go to tough places like Easter Road, we go to places like Tynecastle, and those are some of our best performances of the season.
Yeah.
We go to Pittodrie and we dig out a result in a really tough game. Fair enough, we've got our field to thank for that more than we do Michael Beale, but we were still able to dig out results in tough places. There's a few black marks against Michael Beale at the moment, I think, so far. Old Firm games, he's shown that he can set up the team to compete. He's not shown that he can set up the team to win consistently those games, and I think that's something that we've given him a bit of leeway on because we know he's only had the opportunity to bring in 2 players so far. We know the squad needs major surgery as we head into this season. He's kind of trying to manipulate the hand he's been dealt on that front, and it's been encouraging, the signs that we've seen. I'd say, I know there's no trophy for being the better team in some of these games, but I think in large spells we have been, but we've not been clinical up front, and that's been symptomatic of a large part of our season. And Michael Beale spoke about it. We were in the post-match press conference against Hearts, and he spoke about how we are causing ourselves massive problems in both boxes, and that's where
he loves that term, doesn't he? Winning both boxes. He loves that term.
He likes chaos up front. So what would you give him out of 10?
I'm going for a 3 out of 10 now.
Oh, jeez, there's a headline.
I think it's been encouraging, but it's not been perfect. It's probably how I would assess it. Yeah. What keeps getting thrown at us by opposition fans is that we don't turn up in the games that matter.
Yeah.
And one of those was the League Cup final, and he didn't play Cantwell, he didn't play Raskin, and that was a big mistake. He probably knew that within about 10 minutes of that game starting.
I think he did, yeah.
But it was that was a huge mistake. And they then look at the other Old Firm games. All the Old Firm games have been tight since Michael Beale has come in. We've not had a 3-0 like we had at the start of the season or the end of the previous season. They've all been single goals, single goal defeats when we've lost. we had that. We were winning 2-1 heading into the last 5 minutes of the game at Ibrox at the start of January, and then you look at the 3-0 victory at Ibrox to the end of the season. So there are encouraging signs there. We need more. We need this summer to be a real transformational summer on that front, and we need to start. And we need to start quickly on the big games next season. The first thing we need to do next season after we qualify for the Champions League. Although to be fair, I would prefer Europa League Thursdays, but the money from the Champions League.
I don't think the club will agree with you.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think they will. I think the money from the Champions League is so important that we need to make sure we get there. Once we qualify for the Champions League, win that first Old Firm game and win it in a manner that is convincing.
Yeah, it's very hard to disagree with you. I know that might stun you coming out my mouth, Craig, given the chats that we have at Ibrox. But
Yeah,
it is,
for the listeners' benefit, Kyle and I sit next to each other at Ibrox and we very rarely agree on anything.
Yeah.
So this is a bit of a novelty.
That's why they're sitting on separate sides of the table.
that's exactly. But you know, Craig told me there touched on a lot of the points in terms of the quickness that he's brought, not success, but there has been a sort of transformation. Do you think Michael Beale is the man to bring success back to Ibrox next season?
It's a killer question. Yeah, it's a killer question. Is that the time? But no, listen, he's the man in the chair, and I hope he is. It's really that simple. I think he's got a great tactical awareness. He's obviously got an eye for a player, although you know Raskin and Cantwell were players that were already on the list of recruitment. You know, they're not necessarily just Michael Beale pulling out his phone. I don't think it quite works like that. But I'm encouraged by the fact that the games have got better, and the fact that we are clearly getting into the summer having moved out some of the big senior players. Actually,
Yep.
Once you do that, that means by definition you're not where Rangers were probably captured, which was an over-reliance on one or two key players. You know, a Morelos style of play, a Kent to try and produce something or pull people out of position. If you're adding in real quality round about that, I think it's not just the individual players that's the important thing. It's that Michael Beale is trying to change the way that Rangers play. And that's going to be the transformation, because I think we have been a little bit samey. Teams have been able to catch us out. Celtic energised the way that they play. For example, under Postecoglou, they changed it. You know, Rangers have to go through a similar transformation. What we've seen has been fairly encouraging. I'm not going to duplicate what Craig said. We haven't won the big ones.
Yep.
Let's see who comes in. Let's see what we start the season with. And then let's see where the bar's been set. It's as simple as that. He's done what he could do to some extent. He's not set the heather on fire because he's not been able to get one of those trophies that were on the table. I wouldn't necessarily completely hold that against him, because he's been working with a squad that we all know hasn't been fit for purpose, and players who, by and large, whatever cliche again you want to use, down tools, weren't in the fight, felt the jersey was too heavy, whatever, but weren't performing at an optimal level on a consistent basis, and they were letting themselves, the team, and the fans down. Club have done something about that. Michael Beale's doing something about it. Let's get through the summer and let's see how we hit the tread come the start of next season.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. And Ross, I'll let you have a word on, before we move on to the player of the year, etc., and goal of the season and all that jazz.
Looking forward to that conversation.
Yeah,
It's going to be really short.
I know,
really short.
But how have you rated Michael Beale's time so far since he's come in? And again, same question as asked Tommy. Do you think he is the man to bring success back to Ibrox next year?
I think he is the man to bring success back. I was one of the ones that was definitely on the Michael Beale train when he was
You
like...
were. You were driving it.
I think that Beale ball phrase has been thrown about quite often by myself. So yeah, I always liked how Michael Beale came across. I know we discussed earlier about, you know, the kind of credit for the way Rangers played under Steven Gerrard, and I have to agree with what you said, Craig. You know, I'm pretty certain it's not Michael Beale just doing everything in the background and Gerrard stands at the front, right? That's not how it works. But of course, he had a big role to play there. I think if you look at it, actually, I think he's got the best domestic record since he came to the club. I think there isn't a lot in it. I think both Rangers and Celtic have managed to rack up quite a lot of points there. But I think he does have the best record. And I think he's shown that. I still don't think that we've got the kind of tactical imprint on the team that he wants, but he's managed to put together this team to the end of the season to get results, right? Of course, we've spoke about it earlier on this podcast. That can't go on, right? And I think through it, we've had good performances under Michael Beale, and you've seen certain patterns, but I think this summer you're really going to see his ability to transform this squad into what he wants tactically. So I've definitely seen enough so far from Michael Beale to be convinced he's the right man. I always look at it this way, right? He's been at the club before. He understands what it's all about. He understands the pressures of being involved with Rangers, the requirements. And look, that shouldn't automatically get you a role at Rangers, right? Having experience with the club, I think we all get frustrated with that sometimes.
Yeah.
But, sometimes it's certainly better than not having it. So, I've been impressed with Michael Beale so far. Of course, like Craig said, there is a black mark. He didn't manage to get any of these cup competitions, and I think the League Cup final in particular was really disappointing that day because we expected a lot more from the team and they didn't perform. And I think he'll look back in that, like I said before, with a lot of regret. And I think he maybe didn't take the handbrake off that day and take some risks. And I think that's what we wanted in that fixture. So look, a lot of positivity, a lot of encouraging signs going into the summer. And I think it's quite strange the season we've had, that there is a lot of positivity around the club right now. Like a lot of people are excited for this summer coming up and what next season's going to bring. And Michael Beale is a big part of that.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Yeah, I agree with you. I will put my neck in the block and say I also think that Beale is the man to bring success back to Ibrox. As you say, it's odd, the positivity given the pretty poor season that we have had, but it's looking encouraging. As you mentioned, Dowell coming in, the players that he has already brought in, hopefully will all be good for the recruitment in terms of the team moving forward. But listen, as it is a end of season review pod, it wouldn't be one without Player of the Year, Young Player of the Year, and Goal of the Season. I'll start with you here first, Craig. There's not a lot of candidates for the Player of the Year. I think the club went with Tav, Barisic and Tillman. It was really hard to sort of disagree with those three, so take it away. Who was your senior Player of the Year for Rangers Football
Yeah, I was
Club?
hoping actually you'd pick someone else first. So I could,
That's exactly why I picked you.
It's a hard one because when Borna Barisic is on your Player of the Year list, you've had a poor season. I do think, just for the record, Borna Barisic should leave Rangers this summer, but that's a completely different conversation. In terms of Player of the Year, I can't say I've ever thought about giving it to someone who's signed in January before, but this season is the first time I have seriously considered it. And while James Tavernier's been good, he's been consistent, he did have that really poor period where we all knew he was injured. We all knew he was injured, and he was playing through it, and it was really tough to watch James Tavernier in that period of time. He's recovered a little bit of his form towards the end of the season, but he's still not quite there. I would have to give my Player of the Year to Todd Cantwell, if I'm honest about it, because I think he's made a huge contribution to us since he's come in. Ross spoke about how many of his qualities have been shown already. He is a level above pretty much everyone else in that squad. Malik Tillman has been good in patches, but wasn't consistent enough. He is only 20. Another discussion about do we spend the £5 million on Malik Tillman or not, as a completely other podcast.
I haven't asked.
Yeah. I think Todd Cantwell is my Player of the Season.
Yeah. Tommy, who's your Player of the Season?
Wildly inaccurate to give it to somebody who comes in January. It has to be said.
I can see your face there.
That's nonsense. That's genuinely nonsense, right? And if I was being really trite, I'd say I'd give it to the fans, right, for going through the distance. But he's been there all season. It's not a particularly inspiring choice, but I probably agree that James Tavernier, whilst I've been his critic, probably shades it, even if it's just time served.
Is that the level we're at now? He's been there all season, so he gets.
Well, that's almost as bad a place as somebody's shown up since they signed in January, so I'm going to give it to them. So it depends where you want to go with that.
I know, Ross. We've had Cantwell, we've had James Tavernier. Who's your Player of the Season?
Yeah, I agree with Tommy. You can't be giving it to someone that's joined in January, even though I'm a big Todd Cantwell fan that we're all aware of.
I'd like to announce Rossi's extension for the podcast in the next season.
I think Malik Tillman should definitely be up there. I think the impact that he had on Rangers this season for only being 20 years old was pretty remarkable as his first season of first team football, and I think a lot of people forget that. I know there was a lot of questions around him when it came to the big games, but I'm not really expecting a 20-year-old to grab big games by the scruff of the neck in his first season of first team football. So he definitely gets an honourable mention, but I have to go for the captain, James Tavernier. I think there's been numerous times this season where Rangers have been struggling in the games and he scored a penalty or he scored a free kick. Some remarkable free kicks in there.
It's true.
So I think it has to be given to James Tavernier again. I know there's a lot of debate around him, but for me, this is a guy that always, well, for the most part, stands up when required. And of course, there's a lot of debate around him when it comes to winning trophies, and he has to do more of that. We all agree on that, but he can only do so much sometimes, and I believe he's done that this season.
Yeah, again, I think that's fair enough, but I'm gonna go against the grain. I'm gonna go against you two, and I'm gonna agree with Craig again. This is unheard of that you and I
I'm
are
glad it's
agreeing.
on camera.
I know,
and
and
recorded.
so much.
The important thing to remember though is you're the host. You don't get a vote. Right, it's that simple. We win that 2-1. Done. Move on to the next category.
That's fine. It's 2-2. Cantwell to Tav 2. That's what we'll go for.
That one's going to VAR.
Right, we'll move on to the young player of the season again. Not many candidates for this one, Craig. The club put up Malik Tillman, Adam Devine. I know yours is definitely not going to be Leon King, given some of your comments on previous pods, but can you see past anyone bar Malik Tillman for this award?
There's a Belgian guy who came in January.
I think me and Toy will be leaving shortly.
I was going to say, jeez.
No, I think Malik Tillman wins that one hands down. I don't think there's any discussion really to be had about that one, just to kill this part of the podcast.
Totally.
But I think the points Ross mentioned, throughout his first season of full-time football, I think he'd played a handful of games before he turned up at Rangers, and almost instantly made a huge impact, whether it's that USG game, whether it's taking control of games against teams where we're playing against the low block at Ibrox. He was the real creative spark in those early days, particularly under Gio, when it was particularly boring and it was side to side and we were struggling. He was the one that was making things happen, and he continued that throughout the season. He's not been fully consistent. He has been inconsistent in stages, and one of the questions that comes over him is, does he do enough in the big games? But I think what he did do this season is more than enough to win Young Player of the Year and be a real positive for Rangers.
Well, that's the thing. To that point, though, that it's been a criticism of Rangers that we don't have players doing it against the so-called lesser teams in the league. So I don't see it as being a bad thing if we do have a guy that's levels above them, and I'll kill that dead as well there, because I don't want to be open should we spend the 5 million, should we not spend the 5 million on him. But again, we could dedicate a whole other pod to that in the summer. Tillman for you, Tommy? Tillman.
Yeah, I think 10 goals, 4 assists in your first season of first team football. I think he gets it easily. Yep.
Yeah,
Tillman.
Unanimous on that one. Tommy, I'll give you the option here to pick your goal of the season. There was quite a few. The list from the club was a bit odd. I think the fans ended up giving it to, was it the goal away in PSV Eindhoven?
No, it was the one at Ibrox.
Was it the one at Ibrox?
It's the one at Ibrox.
That's even worse. I thought it was the one that was away.
I thought the one at Ibrox was a great goal from
a great
Antonio
goal.
Cholak.
It is a great goal.
Yeah.
It's a good goal. It's not a great
It's
goal.
not a great.
Todd Cantwell's opener at Ibrox against Celtic the other week. There you go.
Oh yeah, that's an out there shout. I
Why?
like that one.
Do you think the
For everything that
awareness,
Yeah.
control over the ball?
it is a fantastic finish,
Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
I think I said that on the in the podcast after the match at Ibrox, or live from Ibrox, I should say, that it looks, because it's in really fast real time, it looks like he's just struck it because it's an open goal. It's not, right? He's done everything that Fashions Gala should think about, right? And that he's got over the ball and he's kept it down. It goes through Joe Hart's legs, if I remember correctly. It's a fantastic technical finish in and of itself. It also is great to see I feel like midfielder attacker following in Rangers as well. It also comes from a shot outside the box, which is fantastic for Rangers.
Yeah.
And it was the opener that set the tone for that game in the sunshine for us to then go on and get a dominant victory, which was absolutely required going into the summer. That's why it's the goal. It's not just the finish itself, it's everything that represented.
I think that's
And I think that guy joined in January.
I like
See,
that. That's a good shout.
that's why he's player of the year. Goals like that,
Exactly.
isn't it? That actually was a goal that I hadn't considered, Ross. But what for you was the goal of the season? I'm sure you've got a few for us here.
Well, a couple of honourable mentions. I think the James Tavernier free kick at Parkhead was a ridiculous goal. I'm not going to give him goal of the season because ultimately we lost that day, and I don't really like that.
Yep.
I think Malik Tillman at Motherwell, where I think he ran from the halfway line himself. Maybe a bit of questionable defending there from the Motherwell players, but it was a great goal. The two for me, it was actually between the goal that the club gave and Antonio Cholak at home to PSV, I thought it was a really, really good goal. I think it's a lovely splitting pass from Stephen Davis to Tavernier. He cuts it back, and it's a really good finish from Antonio Cholak. But for me, I'm going to give it to Fashion Sakala away at Dundee United.
I saw that goal. So there was a thread going around Twitter of each player in the squad's best goal of the season, and I did not remember that goal.
Yeah,
It's a cracker. It's an absolute
I
cracker.
did not remember that goal, but it was an unbelievable finish.
And I think this really sums up Fashion Sakala, really, because I think if you gave him that opportunity 100 times, I don't think he's able to do what he done that day. You know,
Give him it 2 times.
yeah, well, he controls it. The ball, he controls it. His first touch is to get the ball up
Yep.
and give him an opportunity.
Is that all he can
to-
do? He just can't control it.
I'm trying to give him credit here. Controls it very well. Takes a touch that steadies himself and gets the ball in a position that he can strike it again, and he hits it with his left foot right into the top corner. It's a great finish from Fashion Sakala, and I think at that point we were struggling actually. We weren't performing very well under Michael Beale, and I thought it was a great goal at the time. So maybe not the same kind of ideas around it that Tommy had for Todd Cantwell in terms of the context, but just for the actual goal itself,
The
I'm
technique,
going to
yeah.
the technique involved to score a goal like that. I'm going to give it to Fashion Sakala.
Can I just give an honourable mention as well? Scotty Arfield, 988th minute or whatever it was at Pittodrie,
Yeah.
for fairly self-evident reasons.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was a goal that I think you and I had both forgotten
That's a
about
good shout, that.
in
That's a good
the
shout.
context of the season. But Craig, what was your goal of the season and why?
I was to give Fashion Sakala his credit. I was being a bit facetious there when I was speaking about him. To give Fashion Sakala credit, he does make a lot of goal contributions to us throughout the season, and that's significantly underrated by a lot of fans. He scores a lot of important goals, and we saw in the final game of the season against St Mirren him score the type of goal that Ryan Kent should have been scoring many, many times a season. And I thought when you saw Fashion Sakala in that role, for all that he occasionally does trip over the ball or he misses wide open goals twice against Celtic, he does contribute a lot to the team, and he's treated rather harshly. And I would be sad to see, I would be sad to see him go in the summer. I think he should be part of the squad next season.
I'll await the comments on that one.
Yeah, whether he should be a starter or not, I don't think so. But he should be a player that plays a significant role next season. I'm going to go against the grain a bit. I know Ross said he wouldn't give it to James Tavernier at Celtic Park because we lost that game. I would give him the free kick goal as being goal of the season, but I think his header was almost just as good in that game as well, because that is he was going the other way to pull his head back to try and header it. He got it on target. He pulled us back into the game. I think it was a really important goal at that stage, and he was almost single-handedly trying to get us back in that game, and what was a really important game at that stage of the season. But I think his free kick against Celtic at Celtic Park was our goal of the season, and what was a really poor season for standout goals for Rangers.
It's interesting that we've all gone for different goals here. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring in terms of this and say that my goal of the season is again for Todd Cantwell, and it was Cantwell against Aberdeen. The reason for that is that it was something that's severely
Hate Aberdeen.
That's it. It's just that, well, that's one reason, but it was just that the fact that something that's been missing from our game is scoring from set pieces. And when was the last time you've seen a player scoring from a volley in the corner? I think in the post-match press conference after that game as well, he said to Suter that he noticed that it was something. He said, the ball's going at the back post, just leave it. And he says, I think I can get onto it, and he did, and it was ultimately at the end of the day, it was a fantastic finish. But that just about wraps up our end of the season pod. But we have talked about Rangers milestones. I think it would be only fair. I'll pass this part of the podcast on to you here, Tommy, as the managing editor. But I think it's fair to say this is Ibrox has had quite a fair few milestones of its own this year.
Yeah, it's been a really good year for the podcast in general, and my thanks go to everybody who takes part. Thanks to our partners like Podcast Studio Glasgow for hosting us here. We've had really good things like the Stuart Gibson interview. Really thank the club for their support in terms of our access to press conferences and match day experiences and stuff like that. Some of our other contributors in the background. It's definitely been a really growth centric in terms of our followers and subscribers, and all of that, and our partners allow us to provide all of the content free of charge, which I think is really, really important in this current environment, socially and economically as well for everybody. But by and large, my my thanks go to everybody who engages with our content, who follows us, who subscribes, who takes part in the comments, etc., who generally agree with me and all of my opinions. I'm pretty sure we can edit that out, right? But no, listen, there's a lot of content out there, and I think we do a fantastic job, and it's not done in isolation, and we really appreciate anybody's time for it. But it's been a good year for this Ibrox. It's mirrored the club, and as we come to the end of it, we've got even more plans for next year. Yeah. And there's a lot of exciting stuff coming in the summer and next season. And I look forward to speaking to the rest of the listeners and watchers and you all and next season. It's positive.
It's the first time Tommy said he's looking forward to speaking to us.
Yeah, I know.
But to all the listeners and watchers, that's boilerplate stuff, by the way. I don't mean a word of that.
Got a bit worried there when you said mirrored the club as well. I was like, oh no.
Are we changing managers?
I'm letting you all go. Sweeping through with that. Yeah, it's a cold wind blowing through. No, I just mean that as we come towards the end, it's really positive for us. And we've seen really good growth and good numbers, and I think people understand what we're trying to do. That's the only mirroring of it. We haven't failed in our targets, unfortunately. Fortunately, I should say, over the course of the season. But yeah, I look forward to us being as positive in the summer as Rangers are going to be with all the transformation that's happening on and off the pitch. I think as a support, we should be really, really positive of what's happening to our club over the summer.
Yeah, again, it's hard to disagree with anything you said there. It has been a really good season for it. I think I can speak for the three of us in saying that something I thought we would never get to do is get gantry access to Ibrox. It's been really special, and I know that I've been with you as well, and it's been really special, Ross, hasn't it? Being able to do that and report from the gantry at Ibrox.
Yeah, I mean, it's my first season with the podcast, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. The being able to have an opinion about Rangers on a platform like this is, it's great. And I think being able to cover the club in that way with the access that we've had has been really eye-opening. Yeah. And, you feel like you're in a very privileged position to be able to do that, so I've absolutely loved it. And look, I'm just looking to do the same next season for the podcast. I'm looking for it to go from strength to strength, and I'd just like to say the same as Tommy, that thanks to everyone for getting involved and listening and watching and engaging with us. This is why we do it. We love the community. We're trying to grow here, and let's hope we see more of that next season.
We're going to do a poll over the summer in terms of vote out the podcast that we don't like.
No,
I get to write the poll, so I'm not putting myself on it because I'm pretty sure I know what would happen there, right? But I thought, listen, you're right, and again, it's a call out to the club of we really appreciate their support and helping us and giving us that access. They don't have to do that, and I think some of the other changes behind the scenes as James Bisgrove takes up his position as well in terms of the fans forum and the enhanced fan engagement can only be beneficial for everybody out there, but also podcasts like ourselves that are just fans wanting to engage with other fans. That's a really positive message from the club that we definitely shouldn't walk past.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting season for the team and this is Ibrox. So I think that's a nice point to end it there. So thank you very much, Ross, for joining us today.
Yep, thoroughly enjoyed it. Looking forward to the summer now and reading all the transfer rumours that come at Rangers. That's the beauty of it. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you, Craig.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been enjoyable being in the studio and doing our podcast face to face. It's a bit of a novelty, but it's been good fun.
And thanks to you, Tommy.
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope all the listeners and watchers have as well.
That's it. And thanks to all the listeners and watchers out there. It's been an enjoyable season. It's been ups and downs, but hopefully we've got a better season to look forward to next year. Thank you for tuning in. Take care, everybody, and goodbye.